Proverbs 18:16 says, "A gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great." A gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. The reason we need to call out the gifts in our children is because the gift that they carry will be the thing that opens doors for them, employment doors, relationship doors, all sorts of doors. It's the thing that they will be known for. It's the thing that they will make a contribution to the world with. And so we're trying to call out the gifts in our children, but half the time we're not even convinced about the gifts we carry. And so there's work to be done on ourselves. And the reason Heath and I have been talking about this gift thing so much and why we want to do a part two of this conversation is because we think there's more to be said and more to be understood. As a younger guy, I had a band. We were together for about 20 years, and my songwriting partner Jared, who's an exceptional musician, exceptional in every sense of the musical sphere, would often have to coach me on the sidelines of gigs because I would have this self-doubt and this sense of like, what are we even doing here? I'd feel that, every other band was, better than our band, and we didn't have the whatever it was, the popularity or the recognition. I don't know, all the insecurities that I think everybody deals with at different times with their gifts. And he had this little coaching method, and I'm not even sure that he knew he was doing it half the time, but often when I would be, thinking, doubtful thoughts about, the room we were in, the place we had found ourselves, those questions that maybe you've asked yourself, what am I doing in this room? How did I get here? You look around and you think, everybody else in this room is exceptional. Everybody else in this room is so gifted and so talented, and I don't stack up and I don't match up, and that little process that we go through. And he would look at me and say, just, we're good, right? We're good. In other words, the reason we were booked for this event or asked to do this show, whatever it was, is because not only do we have we put the work in, but other people think we're good, and that's why they brought us on board for their event. A gift makes way, a gift opens the way and ushers the giver into the presence of the great. So it turns out that in a lot of those rooms, I was good enough to be there. I just didn't know that. And I needed somebody else to call it out in me. And as we're trying to figure out parenting, trying to figure out fatherhood, half the gig is just remembering that you're there to call out the good in your child, in the kids that you're looking after. Not necessarily to compare them to other kids in their class or other people in their field or what they should be when they're adults, or even comparing them to where you were at their same age. Just recognizing where they're up to and calling out the good in them. So if no one's done that for you for a while, let me just say, you're good. There's good in you, and there's good that you can give. And now take that and call it out in someone else, especially in the children that you are serving, leading, and helping to grow up. Call out the gift in them and call it good. My name's Justin, and this is Father Figures, a gifts conversation, part 2. Welcome back to the podcast spaceship that is no longer a spaceship. It is now an interstellar, interdimensional space continuum. Stop it, brain. The first lesson in parenting is to not say everything that you think.
Oh, man. That is so true.
Just take a little breath and remember the next thing that you say could create the butterfly effect and blow the world up. So don't let it do that. Anyway, something about the Book of James and the tongue being harder to control than any ship on the ocean.
Something in that.
Okay, you're a child, or you are a child, and you're still pretty much a child.
Am I?
Yeah.
You've pretty accurate.
You've got gifts and talents. I've seen them. I've noted them. Do you, as a former comedian, currently trying to get the funny back? I know you're working on it. It's good. Justin Timberlake brought sexy back. You're bringing funny back. I know that. So was it your parents that were funny? Who called out the funny in you?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say my parents called out the funny. Growing up in in a church, for those of you listening that grew up in a church, it's a very forgiving place in the sense of, um, are you funny? If you're trying to be funny, everyone will say you're funny.
Yeah.
If you're trying to sing, everyone will tell you you can sing.
Yeah.
It's very forgiving in that nature, and I certainly experienced that. So I think I grew up and was surrounded by people that kept telling me I was funny, so I kept believing it,
Yeah.
and that sort of grew into something that became something over time.
And that actually became something that um, opened lots of doors for you. The confidence you had to understand a punchline uh, opened lots of doors for you. What do you remember the feeling of when you hit a punchline and people laughed and you were surprised?
Oh, look, to be honest, I still am. I think,
Amazing, isn't it?
um, yeah, I think, occasionally I'm like, you drop a one liner somewhere, and you're like, that is just going to bomb. I know it's going to bomb, and then everyone laughs, and you're like, whoa, didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
And I remember some of the first times that, I performed in the comedy group I was in. I think we were genuinely surprised that people thought we were good.
Mm.
And I've got a video of the very first performance we did, and it was terrible. Not terrible, terrible, but it was pretty
Comparative,
ordinary.
but if you were comparing where you ended up to where you started, the
Oh
the
yeah, it
distance was
was
great.
pretty
Yeah, yeah,
ordinary,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
But everybody loved it, and we it was a talent quest.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we're competing against bands and musicians, and we were the only comedy trio to perform.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why we won, just
Right.
because we were giving it a crack, you know.
Yeah, and there's probably not a whole lot of comedy trios to compete against. Uh,
And that was it during our whole time together. That was it. There was only
yeah.
us. And
Yeah.
when you overlay that with the church culture,
But you also found a uniqueness. That's the point of this conversation. They found a uniqueness. You believed in the uniqueness in you, and you took it to market in some senses. And the market said, "Yeah, we love it." We laughed.
and I think sometimes you just, I mean, we didn't ever decided that's what we wanted to do. It's just something we discovered and sort of got swept up in people telling us that we were good and should keep doing it and do more of it. And
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened. For you, I imagine things are slightly different because as a musician and a band, yes, within the church scope, you can keep getting told that you're good. But once you move beyond that,
Yeah.
if you're a bad band, like you're just not going to be asked to play,
What I love about live
So
what I love about live performance music is I say to people, people will just vote with their feet. They may not boo you, but they will leave the venue. They
yeah. Well,
if it's working, they stay. If it's not, they go.
yeah, I remember. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld. I heard someone asked him something about, do you tell your kids when that, if they're trying to be funny and you think they're not funny?
Mm.
And he says, no, not at all. I'll never tell them that I don't think they're funny. He said, the world will tell them that. I don't need to. It's like, and it's true.
Yeah.
We parents don't need to tell our kids what they're not good at because the world will do enough of that. We should
But
be there encouraging them.
find your gift and find your tribe are two of the biggest big rocks that you can think of when you're trying to build the confidence of a child or anyone really.
Yeah.
So find your gift is about calling out the gift that you see in them, even if you don't fully understand it.
Yeah.
Uh, and find your tribe is about can you find other people um, that will understand how good you are at this thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
So the whole thing of, anyone can, I don't know, anyone can do mathematics, but you don't want anyone working on the space shuttle program because they said I can add two and two, right? And I don't know, it's a dumb example, but
I think that's where the world will start to weed out the people that aren't as good as they need to be in order to get something done.
so to that thought, then one of the struggles we have as parents is knowing where encouragement and reality meet.
Yeah.
So I'm encouraging you. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You're taking your first steps. Wow. It's like you're the only person that's ever learned to walk. This is incredible. Because in our little house bubble, that's, you
Yeah.
are the star. At home, you are the star. And then you move out into maybe your neighborhood bubble and then maybe in your school bubble and beyond.
Mm.
And suddenly you realize that humanity shuffles itself and sieves you and puts you in a certain position. And so my job as a parent, I think, is to give them the confidence that home, I want home to be the place where they can be a star,
Mm.
where they can be themselves as completely as possible. They can be it with us at home.
That's
That's
great.
that's the kind of environment I'm trying to create. And when I say be imitators of God, that Ephesians chapter says, that idea of here's the whole of creation, go play. You know, the whole thing is home. Go for it. You should probably treat it better, but that's an
That's a whole
ecological
nother episode.
conversation. Yeah. But what I'm saying is when they come into the home, that's the place I want it to be safest. That's the place where I want it to be as much of themselves can be expressed as possible. There's a heap of nuance to that as well, of course, along the way.
Did, did you experience that as a child growing up? Did you feel like your home was that place where you could be the real Justin and try the things
Yeah.
out that needed to be tried out?
Potentially, there was certainly times when the home became dad's office or it became mum and dad's workplace and those sorts of things. Of course, our kids have all experienced that with the pandemic, where the home where it was supposed to be just this fun, safe place, suddenly everyone was being serious and trying to do meetings. And there were times like that where it's like, you can't go here, you can't do that, you're being too loud. Because as you might imagine, most of my activities are kind of loud. Music tends to be, music is
Yep.
louder than the written word. Um, so there was all of that. I think by and large, it was a fun place to be. Um, but I also knew we had a woodshed out the back. So I
Nice.
used to love going and chopping the wood. Um, I had my trampoline. I had all those escape places. I think we've talked on the pod before about those third spaces.
Mm.
And of course, the geography of your home is hard if you've got a small space. Is there a third
Yeah.
space within the community that kids can get to? Anyway,
Yeah.
that's way too broad of a conversation. But yes, by and large, that was where I first set up a drum kit. That was where I first had a go at, drawing and painting and doing puzzles and whatever it was that we tried to do. Yeah. How about for you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I was always very comfortable in home, and being me in home. I think we had a good environment for that. Um, we're about to discover now as my
The
kids are getting home
children.
from school.
Hmm.
Yeah, we'll see how much they just find home as a place to be themselves
As
when they
Dad's
walk
turned it into
in.
a interstellar Zoom studio.
Yeah, correct.
So
Exactly. Yeah, I think for you though, when was the bit that, because you can sing, you're musical, you're an entertainer if you like, you can entertain crowds, you're funny, and you're pastory,
pastory. Yeah,
pastoral.
go with that.
Go
Pastory.
with
I like
pastoral.
pastory. Yeah.
What where's the moment that those little things uncovered one another or even connected?
Yeah, so I think the answer to your question is that environment, I was allowed to tag along with Dad, so I went and I saw him, I guess, preach. I saw him do lectures. I saw him teach in classrooms. Same with Mum. They did very similar things. Um, and Dad was very much the one that would help people laugh before they learnt anything. So the laugh that converts to learning was a big observational truth in my world. Dad would always, he's not nearly as funny anymore. Of course, he's losing it in his old age. Um, that's just for you, Donny. Um, but yeah, I remember people would love when Donny got up to speak because he would make them laugh, and then he'd say, "And here's what and then you move that into learning. So essentially, with music, I tried the same thing. One of the things was we sang original music, so we weren't a covers band. You didn't know our songs before you saw us play, and so you had to grab the audience by the ears and say, you are going to enjoy this moment. This is going to be fun. You are going to love this music. And so I would try and make the audience laugh. I would interrupt our own songs. I would do all sorts of things, just basically anything I could to make people if we're at a festival, I want them to stay in our tent. If we're at a gig, I wanted them to stay in the room. And so I'd do anything I could because I thought the song, if I could get them to laugh and stick around and feel comfortable, then they might stick around for the song. And if they stuck around for the song, they might buy the album or get the lesson I was
Yeah.
trying to teach them. Yeah. So
Yeah.
all of those things came together with what I do on stage. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, did you find there was a time, if you think about, your dad sort of modeled some great stuff of make them laugh, teach them a lesson
Yeah.
kind of thing, in from a teaching point of view. Was there a time, was there ever a time that you remember your dad or your mum telling you you're really talented at this? You're really good at this, Justin. You should be up. I mean, you went off and studied arts or
Yeah. I
music
did
when
did a music degree. Yeah.
yeah, did mum and dad go,
Look,
"Kish, Justin, what do have you really thought this through?" Like,
I think that my parents had done brave things in their careers too. So
yep.
they had taken risks themselves. They had jumped off cliffs, into new career paths that didn't have much money in them, and they'd
Oh,
changed.
like they weren't abseilers or anything. It's not like they were jumping off cliffs
No, no.
for a
Although,
job.
as far as I know, uh, no, in that metaphorical sense, there was some cliff jumping. But yeah, so when it all got a bit risky for them as they were watching me and saying, "Hey, this is too much of a risk. This is you haven't thought this through," I would just hold up a mirror. And in it, I don't remember. Well, there were definitely moments of tension.
Yep.
Definitely, of course, there were. I know that my parents were worried many, many times, in what I was choosing to do. But I feel like the way they'd set us up was, there was a lot of follow your heart. There was a lot of listen to the voice of God. How do you discern the voice of God and how do you discern movement? And if I come back to my general thesis on leadership, which is mission is movement,
Yep.
staying in the same place forever is just never a great idea. And I don't mean that your house, what I'm talking about the progression of self and the
Yep.
progression of calling out the gifts, because whatever gifts were called out in you as a child, most of us would have a story that says, and then it was crushed, and then it was found
Yeah.
again, and then it was crushed, and then it was found again. And some of us have a story of it was crushed and it never came back to life. And for you, for those people listening that's resonating with, prayer for you guys, because honestly, I think our job as a community is to call out the gifts in one another. Anyway, I'm on a soapbox there. Um,
You
I'm
don't
really
slip
passionate.
up there, mate.
I'm really passionate about, I want people to be encouraged into their gifts and I want them to be brave enough to have their gifts measured against realistic measures
Hmm.
so that, we're not setting you up for a failure. If you can't sing in tune, don't go on American Idol, whatever it happens to be. If you can't do mathematics, don't apply for the NASA program. Um, so those sort of things. But when I look back, I think that the environment was that it wasn't. There were seasons where it became risk averse,
Hmm.
and most of that I put down to, for myself personally, there were seasons when my insecurities had built to such a level and my anxieties had built to such a level that I stopped believing I could sing, play, be funny, all of those sorts of things. And so I had to very much find again the teacher, leader, mentor that could help me build that back up again. And so, I've done that through therapy and all sorts of things at different times. So when we're creating environments for our children, I feel all the time like I've failed as a parent. I haven't, I don't have enough money to send them on the research trip I don't have enough time to invest in them to teach them how to play guitar like I play guitar, or I
Yeah.
don't have enough energy at the end of the day. So I I think that's where I think the finding, calling out the gift and finding your tribe is,
Hmm.
you know, most of parenting is letting go, isn't it?
Oh, gosh, I think without a doubt, and I'm really grateful as my kids start up noise in the background and different things happening.
Yeah.
Um, giving them the freedom to find their things is really important, to find their pathway, to find their track.
You've got
What's the thing that they naturally gravitate to.
So you've got the three, obviously different ages, so they're at different stages of finding themselves and their gift mix, but you've also got some neurodiversity in there as well. Is it different? Like, because I mean, no child, there's no such thing as, one size fits one when it comes to parenting.
Yeah.
Um, how do you go about it? Because you've got a finite amount of gifts that you can show them, but then you've got these different brains that work so
Well,
differently as well.
well, do I really? I mean, a
Oh,
finite
come
number of
on,
gifts,
come on.
really.
We're here to stop being so Aussie about it. You're good.
No, I
You're
was
good at
going
what
the
you
other
do, and
way.
I
It's
find you
not
beautiful.
finite, it's infinite.
Come on.
See
He's
what I did there?
overconfident now. He's
There
moved
we
from
go.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's hard. I think there's some things that are naturally easier to encourage kids in. They pick up a musical instrument,
Hmm.
it's easy to encourage them in that. It's easy to go, yeah, we'll get you some lessons, or, here's my old drum kit, play that, or here's an old guitar, play that. Those kind of things are pretty obvious. I think for, the gifts and talents that aren't so obvious,
Hmm.
they're the bits that are a little bit harder. And I think, the boy's mum is much better at identifying those things than I am. She was always the one that's really good at saying, "Did you notice how good that, child X is at playing with their cars?" Or,
Yeah.
"Do you notice how good they are at putting their arm around their brother when something goes wrong?" Those gifts and talents are just as important, if not more important sometimes, than
Hmm.
can they play the drums, can they play the guitar, the type of person that they're turning into, and encouraging that, because those are these traits that we want them to grow up and have, because that's going to shape them as a human.
I think the safety that we're talking about for a child, again, going back to that Ephesians, be imitators of God, therefore, as dearly loved children. I love that it's a reminder of come like a child. That's a theme all right throughout Scripture. Come as a child. That bright-eyed,
Mm.
open-eyed, safe kind of faith place where it's just like this is going to be great for me. I'm going to enjoy this. But I'm aware too of the impossibility of being as gracious, as forgiving, as merciful, as hopeful, as understanding, as long suffering, as all of those fruits of the spirit that we're, just do this. I'm so aware that I fall short so often, and again, that can tap into our own insecurities as parents, the lack that I bring, um,
Mm.
but the enormous task that's ahead of me, and so again, I think if I can create, third spaces for me as much as for the children, um, that's
Yeah.
gonna help me out. And again, that meditative practice, and whether you're a person of faith or not, a meditative practice is always going to help you. The take a deep breath moment before you get frustrated by the child, the take a deep breath um, before you express that you don't understand what is going on right now.
Yeah.
So as we're calling out gifts, I find, adults, there's the adult that wants to live vicariously through their child. I couldn't be a race car driver, so you can, and I'm going to invest all this money, and you are going to be a race car driver. That kind of
Yep.
thing, and we've met those parents, and I think there's so many avenues for failure in that approach. The idea of trusting a child's growth to to the hands of God is actually such a broad, and it sounds so simple to say it, but it's such a challenging thought of, do I trust that even in my lack, they're going to get what they need if I'm coming back to, okay, God, help me out here. That quick prayer,
Mm.
dear Lord, help, Amen. That's a really helpful prayer, I reckon.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think, there's a mix of people. As I think about some people I know, there are some people that obviously are completely optimistic and think, my child can do anything,
Yeah.
and their talents are limitless, and whatever they touch is good. And then you've almost got people at the other end that I guess are like, I don't think my child, has any talent or gifts or abilities at all. And I think, um, and I think it usually comes back to how we've grown up and what we're like as people, because we know that everybody, there's good and there's talents and there's gifts in everybody. We've got these amazing God-given gifts in each of us, and I think the more that we as parents and as dads can try to focus on, like I said before, the world will tell us enough times when we're not good at something, when we can't
They're
do
not
something.
they're
That
not as
that shouldn't
kind.
shouldn't be the thing we need to do, you
Yeah.
know.
No, that's it. That's it.
We should just be constantly trying to encourage our kids and in whatever it is, whatever that tiny thing is that they can do really well.
Yeah.
Or the big thing that they obviously do well. Let's encourage them in all those things.
Well, this is where we're coming back to the parent as leader.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of dads and mums, I know there's plenty of mums listening to us as well. We call it father figures, but it's just about figuring out fatherhood for us. So whatever you're grabbing
Mm,
from it, hope it's good. But the parent is a leader, whether you like it or not. You're a leader. So I often come back to some of the leadership lessons I've learned over the years. And it's a good one that comes through. Sometimes when we prepare people for marriage, we've got this thing called prepare and enrich. This is like a survey that we go through. I feel like it could be handy just for all humans at different points, but they have these 10 points of communication, conflict resolution, financial management, leisure activities, family and friends, relationship roles, spiritual beliefs, all of those things. The reason they measure them is because they are all parts that make up you, and they
mm,
are all things that set expectations, whether you realize it or not. You have expectations of your child either catching up to you on it or
mm.
agreeing with you on it or basically coming alongside you and all. And so much of parenting is like, but I don't agree with you on financial management. I don't agree with you on spiritual beliefs. That's a big one in families. That's not my
Yeah, of
style
course.
of communication. That's not my style of conflict resolution. So as soon as you've figured it out for you and your partner or you and the significant other person, it gets more and more complex the more people. One plus one doesn't equal two, two plus one doesn't equal three. So a lot of this stuff again comes back to, can you feel confident to draw out the positives in a child whilst also parenting, pastoring, guiding the parts of the child that you need to say no to. That's wrong. You are not good at. Don't do those sorts of things.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great point, isn't it? And I mean, that's what this podcast is about, is we're just trying to figure stuff out. We're just trying to have conversation and go, I haven't got all the answers.
Mm,
We're tripping over ourselves from time to time, but I think, for me, the crux of all of these things that we're talking about, particularly in finding the gifts and talents within our kids, is if we just start with encouragement, if we just start with continually
yeah.
encouraging our kids, man, that's got to be our job right there, doesn't it?
I think that the idea of, I don't know which parent said it, but I'm sure parents have, my child will never be a, my child will never do blah. There's no more surefire way.
Fair to say, it's like, yep, challenge accepted.
Challenge accepted, because children will respond to challenge, and some that negative challenge, I'd rather give them a positive challenge of, you know, in our world, the kids like to play music because they've got musical instruments around them. My eldest son actually loves playing music, just doesn't want to be seen playing music or he doesn't want to be in front of an audience. So finding ways of drawing that gift out of him has involved setting up things that record him playing music or that he can share in different
Yeah.
ways. I'm trying to think of another example. But yeah, I mean, surely you've got, like, go back to your kids, the three boys. Um, I guess maybe the question is, who's been the easiest to draw the gift out of? Is it the one that's most like you?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, I would say so. Yeah. And it's, some more obvious gifts. So, the middle child Fox is definitely got
He's got the punchlines, right?
he's got the punchlines, he's
Yeah.
got the one-liners, and he naturally wanted to play the drums.
Hmm.
So that was dead easy. My oldest, a bit like yours, wants to be a musician, wants to be an actor, wants to be on stage, but is terrified of performing in front of people. And you kind of go, I don't,
Yeah.
how does that work? So
Yeah.
trying to encourage him in, hey, well, why don't we just do this little bit here? Or why don't you do that? Or, excuse me, why don't you be involved in the school drama where you're not the only person on stage? There's people around you to sort of catch you if you fall, kind of thing. Um, they're the things that
But
I enjoy.
that's a beautiful example of find your talent, find your tribe.
Yeah,
Because the
without a doubt.
talent in acting is, yep, okay, at some point you might have to do the solo piece, but for the most part you're going to hang out with other thespians, other actors that like it, and they're going to enjoy each other's company, and it's going to be fantastic. um Again, you're trying to give them that ability to enjoy it, but understand that over time the world will sieve us out, and some of us will go on to achieve things. I like go-karting. I also like Formula One driving. I just know which level I'm going to drive at. you
Yeah,
know
I do come back to that thing of what Jerry Seinfeld said is the world will sift things out. People around us, external to us, will shape us a little
mm,
bit
mm.
more, and our role as parents is to perhaps not put those restrictions on our kids, and just to really encourage them in any way we can. You got 5 kids. One of the things I'm interested in to go, you've obviously got there's some probably some obvious talents across your 5 kids.
Mm.
Is there one child that you think has got the less obvious talent that you focus on because it is less obvious?
Well, can I just start with how I fail as a father? Um, one of the areas with having a larger tribe than most, there's plenty out there that have five, but it's not as common these days, um, is that it takes so much time to do the general stuff you've got to do that I worry that I'm not taking time to do the zoom in, find the specificity of the child, and bring that out. So again, I'm finding so often I have to trust that the environment that we're creating is allowing them to express themselves in a half decent way, so that when they go out into, maybe their school can call it out in them, and their youth group or their tennis club or whatever. One of the interesting things for me has been my eldest Noah, who actually has, I don't know how you put it, but he's the kid that goes, Dad, drop me off and leave me, drop me at the thing and then leave, go away. He's that kid. Um, and then, he's graduated year 12 this year. And at times he said to me, why didn't you make me keep going with saxophone, or keep going with footy, or keep going with science, or whatever it was? And my point to him has always been that his no is a really strong no. His no has always been, his yes is always really strong, and his no is really strong too,
Yeah,
which I don't naturally deal well with. I want people to go, yeah, I'll give it a go, and we'll
yeah,
vaguely,
yeah,
I'm like, let's make the target really large and we'll figure out what it's about later. He wants to know what the target is.
yeah,
So that one has been more challenging from a personality point of view. The younger children, I feel like it's that classic, your first child gets all your time and attention,
yeah.
and later on you think, am I giving enough time? So look, and again, we've been challenged by so many things, including pandemic, which,
Mm,
through a spanner in all sorts of works. I think, to try and answer your question, because it's a harder question than you realize.
mm.
I think that I've tried to expose the kids to as many options as I can think to expose them to,
Yep,
of things you can do with your life.
yeah,
And then, if a little spark, I just look for the spark. Where's the spark? Let's see if we can get the spark and get a flame going out of that spark.
yeah,
So I don't know how to do ballet, but my daughter loves going to ballet. So I go to
yeah.
ballet, and I join in on the daddy daughter dance when they do that. And I try and pirouette, and she laughs, and it's all good. Um, in fact, one of her core memories is that daddy put a tutu on at ballet on the parent day, because they gave us all tutus, and she just thought
Nice.
that was the best thing. And I
Huh.
also know that I will do that when she's 15, just to embarrass the crap out of her again.
Did you have to take the one off you were already wearing in order to put
Yeah,
the
well,
one that
only
she
because
wanted?
the colors clashed a little. Yeah, yeah. The other one brought out my eyes more, and I was disappointed. So when it comes to calling out gifts in our children, I guess the question is, was that modeled to you in the first place? Did somebody call out the gifts in you, and how did that happen? And then, were you do you feel like you've done okay so far? Because we're not finished parenting yet. Do you feel like you've done okay so far calling out the gifts in your kids?
I was hoping that was a rhetorical question. You actually want me to answer? I'm like, oh, geez. Um, yeah, I mean, I look back and I think I am who I am today because of the tribe that was around me and saw the things in me that I perhaps didn't see as obviously,
Mm,
and I leaned into them. I was able to, become the person I am because I felt supported by that.
mm.
Um, I don't think it's on my mind with my kids as much. However, I want to give them every opportunity that they can to find those things. My
Yeah.
oldest, when he was about 12, he's 16 now. When he's about 12, he wanted to be a Mario Kart champion, on Nintendo.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, well, if you want to be a Mario Kart champion, you need to be able to play Mario Kart for like 2 hours a day to get really good at it.
Yeah.
And what I'm gonna do is that 2 hours of Mario Kart time per day that you can have is not part of your screen time. It's in addition because you're training to be really good at something. And I want you to 2 hours, you tell me when those 2 hours are and say, Dad, I'm in training. And he probably did it for, I don't know,
Two
maybe
days.
yeah, a couple of weeks,
Yeah,
really.
right. Oh, that's pretty good.
He held on pretty good, but realized at the end that he probably was never going to be as good as he wanted to be,
Mm,
despite, all things. But wanted to give him that opportunity to go, man, if you want to be a Mario Kart champion, you got to work hard at it, and I'll give you the support you need to do that. So
yeah, yeah.
those kind of things are obvious. There's lots of other things that are less obvious that I think. How do we find those things in our kids? Well, I think as you've said in the past, how we create a space in our house in the home that we live in, where
Mm.
we give our kids the opportunity to be themselves.
I think when it comes back to that third space that we keep talking about, the ability to be, um, and again, I'll come back to the meditative practice that is taught right throughout Scripture of um, prayer. The idea that you can stop and say, "Ah, God, I don't get what's going on right now. Could you grant me peace? Could you help me feel hope? Could you help me believe in what it is that I think I'm supposed to do? Because life will take our children, whether we like it or not. Doesn't matter how good we are as parents. Doesn't matter how much we failed as parents. Our children will go into a space that will crush them at times. Uh, crush their gifts, hurt their feelings, do all that sort of stuff. And it's devastating as a parent when you see that happen for your child. But I come back to this point of, you know, the seasons and it's all very well to talk about sometimes you're a seed, sometimes you're a sapling, sometimes you're a tree. It's all very well to talk about that, but nobody wants to experience the pain of the world sieving us, telling us we're not good at the thing that we're pretty sure we're good at. And so finding your talent and finding your tribe is not just about finding someone that incessantly tells you you're good all the time. It's about trusting someone to be your coach. And so if we come back to that dad job where, yes, we're going to be our child's friend, of course, we're going to try and be the safest person in our child's life. But we're also going to be their coach at times. And sometimes the coach will say, go for it, you're going to be great, and just let you give you enough rope to, trip yourself over, like the Mario Kart example. You kind of knew that was
Mm.
not going to go anywhere. But you said go for it, give it a crack, knowing as a coach, they'll run till they're tired and it'll be fine. That's fine. And then there are other areas where you're going to have to say to your child, you know what? This is not your paddock to play in. You wanted to be as I said, I wanted to be an F1 driver, but I could barely drive a go-kart. So someone had to tell me that,
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
you know. But I think, again, if I come back to this thing of my job as a leader of a child, as a coach of a child, and I'm trying to use these words interchangeably. It doesn't take away from the loving parent role that we have, but we have this charge in Ephesians to be imitators of God, which should be understood as being impossible. Therefore, we have to come humbly each and every day, wake up in the morning and say, God, give me the strength again to give this a go again. Let me live with the mercy and the humility and the long suffering and all of those things that we're tasked to do so that I can create environments that are as best we can, carry the peace and the mercy and the grace and all of the good things so that the child can exist in those spaces too. Because honestly, whether the world rewards us for our talent or not, there's too many other environmental factors that go on into that. But if we can tell our child that they're important to us and important to the God that created them, that's a huge step in the right direction of allowing a child to feel safe and know that they are created with a purpose for a purpose. And that's our job. So to all the parents out there, good luck with the coaching. To all of the 50-plus-year-olds that still think you can be a Formula One driver, Ricardo's out, so are you.
There's a chance for me yet.